Spartacus, House of Ashur, begins in the aftermath of Spartacus's rebellion. Gladiators had slaughtered the house of Batiatus and many other nobles. Ashur chose the Roman leader's side, fighting against his own brothers. However, his treason did not buy him much time. When he finally showed up to see Spartacus, supposedly to kill him, Ashur got his own head chopped off instead. Still, a truly persistent bad guy always gets an elaborate second chance. Ashur woke up in the underworld where Batiatus's wife appeared to him and offered a literal alternate reality. In this magnificent fantasy, he sided with Roman big shots Crassus and Caesar. In fact, Ashur and his new powerful friends wiped out the gladiator rebels, and Ashur even had the privilege of killing Spartacus himself. For such extreme loyalty, he was showered with riches and inherited the entire household of Batiatus. And that, dear viewers, is how the House of Ashur was born. The catch, and there is always a catch, is that he is now stuck in this reality with his shiny new title. The problem is, his house is the biggest joke in the Republic, commonly known as the House of Asses. Ashur is, quite rightly, desperate to change the narrative. He figures the best PR move is to win a match in the arena. So he tries to give his gladiators a rousing pep talk, only for one brave or incredibly stupid soul to mention the biggest rumor in town. Ashur only defeated Spartacus by stabbing him in the back. Naturally, Ashur teaches the gladiator a lesson by killing him off. He then quickly realizes that he just executed the best fighter he had, right after sucking up to the Aedile, the game organizer, to finally get his house into the games. Desperate and down a gladiator, Ashur has his doctor organize an in-house competition. The winner is a guy named Logus. Logus, however, is not a fan of the House of Ashur. He is a card-carrying Spartacus disciple whose real goal is to overthrow the Roman system entirely. But a gladiator contract is a great place to bide your time until the revolution starts. Everyone starts believing the house might actually stand a chance until they find out Logus is fighting 3 men. A collective sigh of relief is heaved when the 3 men turn out to be 3 very small dwarves. Early on, the dwarves have the upper hand, but Logus soon rallies and kicks their butts. I honestly do not understand why these people always gloat before the job is actually finished. Because Logus is busy celebrating his victory when 2 of the dwarves he totally forgot to check for a pulse on spring back to life. Talk about an embarrassing plot twist. Logus is finished off. The House of Ashur is utterly disgraced, and Ashur is back at square one, now with 0 good fighters. Defeated but not giving up, Ashur heads to the port looking for fresh meat. That is when he spots her, a fierce warrior lady absolutely demolishing a group of Roman guards. Naturally, Ashur steps in, takes her down, and claims her. His poor doctor nearly has an aneurysm when Ashur declares his intention to put the woman into the arena, since women fighting is absolutely unheard of. But this unheard of move also means it instantly puts the spotlight back on the House of Asses. When the warrior finds out she is now a slave, she immediately grabs Ashur. He smartly counters, reminding her that even if she kills him and escapes, she would never be free, because she would be hunted down for the rest of her life. The only way to truly earn her freedom is to bow to him as her dominus and fight for it in the arena, just as the doctor once did. She agrees to this rather intense deal, and Ashur bestows upon her the glorious name of Achillea. As expected, the gladiators don't take her seriously because, well, she is a woman. Her initial attempt to show her fighting skill fails woefully, and she gets her butt thoroughly kicked. This is not exactly a great start for the new face of the house. Her presence alone causes some type of defiance that the gladiators don't even listen to Dr. A's instructions. And to make it worse, Caesar chooses that moment to send Ashur on a wonderfully humiliating errand, taking down the dead bodies of the gladiator rebels still displayed around town. Even though Ashur got honor, the coins he got for his betrayal are dwindling, so he has to do this dirty job with his house. His opposing house, the owner of the dwarves, spots them doing the dirty job and wastes no time rubbing it in their faces. But the good news comes for Ashur when he receives a letter from Gabinius, a wealthy and influential nobleman in the area. Ashur is instantly excited. This has to be his chance to finally maneuver his way into the next arena game. I do not know why he has his hopes up though, because Gabinius's wife has publicly disrespected him many times, including that one time at the arena when she pretended to forget Logus's name just to shame the House of Ashur. Still, he goes. Upon getting to the house, he is first approached by Gabinius's daughter, who is suffering from heartbreak after Spartacus's rebels killed her husband. She thanks Ashur for getting rid of him, and Ashur seems to take a liking to her, which would eventually get him in trouble because the girl's mom chastises her for putting Ashur on a pedestal when he is nothing but a slave that clawed his way to freedom. The conversation between Ashur and Gabinius is as expected. He asks to see Ashur's house of Batiatus branding from Ashur's slave days, which Ashur already cut off. Then he reminds Ashur the Roman nobles would never see him as equal. He does ask what Ashur thinks of him though. At first, Ashur starts kissing ass, but Gabinius flares up demanding the truth, so Ashur lays his out for him, that the senator is just an old man desperately clinging to power, unable to control the people around him, especially his wife. Gabinius seems to laugh, as if that is exactly what he wants to hear, but then he promptly kicks Ashur out. What the heck kind of meeting is that? While Ashur is busy getting humiliated, his house is enjoying a moment of joyful relaxation. You already know there is no Spartacus without sex scenes, which you are not seeing here thanks to my restrictions. Anyway, one of the gladiators Achillia fought earlier decides the women provided are not enough and tries to sexually assault her. What better motivation is needed for her to get to her full potential? Absolutely none. She kills the guy in the most gruesome way, specifically getting rid of his sexual instrument. Yikes! Doctor rushes in and, loyal to the Brotherhood, orders Achillia to fight him. There is no way she is winning that, but just as she is about to be killed, Doctor pauses because he notices his own face is bleeding. Wait, what? This new lady, without much experience, is able to draw blood from Doctor. We are certainly not wasting that potential. He quickly orders the guys to back off Achillia or face his wrath. Ashur is steaming because Dr. Ray basically let Achillia get away with murder, but he has bigger fish to fry than a dead gladiator. His visit with Gabinius was a total bust, or at least it seemed that way on the surface. Gabinius is actually playing a high-stakes game to see if Ashur is a loyal little bird who will fly back and chirp everything they discuss to Crassus, Ashur's benefactor. If Ashur keeps his mouth shut, Gabinius thinks he can use him as a secret weapon to bridge the gap between Pompey and Crassus, since Ashur supposedly has significant influence with Crassus. The political climate in Rome is incredibly tense, with those two titans at each other's throats, and Gabinius wants to be the man who stops a civil war and rides that glory straight to the top, though his wife Cassutia is definitely not on board. For reasons yet to be fully revealed, perhaps because she views Ashur as a low-born upstart, she despises him and tries to change her husband's mind, though he shuts her down immediately. Since his plans of getting into the arena through Gabinius have stalled, Ashur sends Dr. Ray on a secret mission and hands over the Dr. Ray position to Chelidus. Chelidus has always been a relatively chilled man, which initially makes the gladiators think they can push him around. Erato in particular despises the fact that a woman like Achillia is in the ranks, but Chelidus quickly shuts that down by beating him to a pulp. He makes it clear just how many champions he has taken down in the ring, forcing the men to put some respect on his name. Despite Chelidus effectively controlling the men, Ashur is deeply disappointed in Achillia's lack of progress. He can't figure out why she won't reach her full potential until his slave and girlfriend Hilara points out a scar on the back of Achillia's palm. The mark suggests a traumatic past that is still holding her back, and while Ashur initially lashes out at Hilara for giving unsolicited advice, reminding her she isn't his wife, he eventually feels bad and apologizes. This weird dynamic is further complicated by another slave, Messia, who has a crush on Hilara that gets firmly shut down. To put an end to the internal uprising, Ashur officially brands Achillia with the House of Ashur mark and encourages her to leave her past behind. When the other gladiators protest her status, Ashur simply asks if any of them has ever managed to draw blood from Dr. Ray, and the silence that follows says everything. The secret mission Dr. Ray is on involves wooing Oppator, the VIP ticket holder, who basically bankrolls the Roman games. Oppator has always wanted to poach Dr. Ray for himself, and has romantic designs on him as well. Dr. Ray decides to leverage this attraction, pretending to consider becoming Oppator's personal Dr. Ray and dining with him in exchange for a way into the games. Part of this plan involves sweet-talking the hateful Cassutia into letting Ashur's house compete, even though she would rather see Ashur fed to the lions. However, the road to the arena is paved with blood. On his way home, Dr. Ray is ambushed by the thug and the group of men he met earlier at the fighting pit. Even though he manages to kill them all off, Ashur and Dr. Ray both assume the hit was ordered by Proculus, the owner of the three dwarves Ashur's man fought. In a shocking twist, we learn it was actually Cassutia who sent the thugs. When the only survivor reports back to her to clear his debt as promised, she kills him herself to ensure her involvement remains a secret. Oppator gets to work quickly, asking for Cassutia's favor in getting the House of Ashur into her husband's games. Cassutia is baffled as to why Oppator is championing the Syrians' cause until Oppator reveals he's doing it for Dr. Ray. During this exchange, Cassutia lets slip that Dr. Ray was ambushed and injured, though she conveniently leaves out the fact that she was responsible. Oppator heads straight to Ashur's villa, where Ashur immediately starts playing the role of matchmaker because of what he stands to gain. He encourages Oppator to help tend to Dr. Ray's wound. However, Ashur didn't anticipate the depth of their connection. As Oppator tends to him in the pool, it becomes clear that Dr. Ray harbors genuine feelings for him as well. They share a kiss, but Dr. Ray is careful to remind him of the mission, speaking to Cassutia about the games. When Opiter questions whether the romance is merely a ploy for the arena, Dr. Ray reveals that his feelings are, in fact, real. Achillea hasn't improved whatsoever, and the branding only made the taunting worse. However, Calidus actually shares the gladiator's weak point with Achillea. Because Achillea is set to fight the 3 dwarves known as the Ferox brothers in the arena, she's been training with 3 men, including Calidus's son Tarchon. Tarchon is arrogant and lacks emotional control, making him the perfect target. Calidus explains that if Achillea can dismantle Tarchon, she can handle the others, as they lack the coordination of the Ferox brothers. Achillea does just that and whoops their asses. It doesn't mean she's ready to face the Ferox brothers, but it sure does make the taunting stop. Tarchon is so butthurt by the defeat that he lashes out at his father, only for Calidus to fling him into the pool, mocking him for being more worried about a woman beating him than controlling his own rage. The joyful thing in the House of Ashur, aside from Achillea finally shutting the gladiators up, is a letter from Crassus announcing his visit. Since he doesn't specify a date, Ashur demands the finest food and wine be served daily until he arrives. Hilera warns him that they simply cannot afford such luxury, but Ashur refuses to listen. He heads to the market for supplies and spots Proculus and his gladiators, including the Ferox brothers, boasting to the crowd. When Ashur steps up to announce his gladiators will face them, he's met with mockery and pelted with fruits and vegetables. To make matters worse, Crassus sends a shipment and demands Ashur pay for the delivery. After a breakdown at home, Ashur returns to the market, manages to pay half, and threatens the delivery man into accepting the balance later. Things take a wild turn when Casutia and her daughter Viridia are ambushed while shopping for fabric. They're nearly killed until Ashur and Dr. Ray intervene and save them. If I didn't know Ashur was dead broke, I would have said he orchestrated it just to look like a hero, but the clues actually point toward Opiter. Earlier, Opiter listened to Casutia lament the lack of fine garments due to Cilician pirate attacks on merchant ships. He specifically recommended a shop that had just received fine Egyptian clothes, and that is exactly where the attack occurred. 2 + 2 = suspicious. This heroic act earns Ashur exactly what he wanted: a place in the games. Gabinius, unwilling to be indebted to a man like Ashur, wipes their slate clean by granting him entry. The attackers are officially blamed on Cilician pirates looking to send a message to Gabinius. Ashur returns home triumphant to give a rousing speech to his gladiators, but he's interrupted by Hilera. A carriage has been spotted, except it isn't Crassus. It's Julius Caesar. It turns out my instincts were half right, but the reality is much more calculating. It wasn't just Opiter behind the attack on Casutia, it was actually Julius Caesar, who orchestrated the entire ambush on Crassus's orders. The goal was to secure Gabinius's gratitude, since he has always been a loyal Pompey man. By paying Opiter to steer Casutia to the market, and positioning Ashur to receive a delivery at that exact same moment, Caesar ensured his pawns were perfectly placed to save the day. Ashur is less than thrilled to find out he was basically used as live bait, especially since Caesar's men nearly turned him into a shish kebab during the staged rescue. Caesar now uses that debt to force his way into Gabinius's inner circle, dangling the fact that Pompey didn't lift a finger to save the senator's family, while Crassus's men were conveniently right there to help. He also reminds Gabinius that Pompey has ignored his pleas for help with the Cilician uprising, suggesting that Gabinius act like his loyalty is shifting just to get Pompey's attention. To make the message loud and unmistakable, Caesar proposes they co-host the games together, seated prominently in the high seats as a very public political statement. Of course, Caesar doesn't come empty-handed. He comes with demands. Since he'll be sharing the cost of organizing the games, he wants Ashur's champion declared primus, meaning the first house to open the games, a massive honor, and an even bigger political flex. He also insists on hosting the Eve of the Games banquet, the Cena Libera, at Ashur's house. Since Crassus only sent a few coins, Ashur is left footing the bill for a party where he's treated like the hired help. Despite the financial strain, Ashur is absolutely hyped, but Dr. Ray warns him not to trust Caesar. Ashur never did. The news of House Ashur being named Primus actually softens Tarchon toward Achillea. He voluntarily shows her respect, welcoming her to the Brotherhood by dropping bread on her table. Unfortunately, it's all calculated. He tells his buddies he's only playing nice so she stays motivated enough to become champion. His real plan is to let her fame grow, so that when he eventually kills her in the ring, he becomes the undisputed king of the mountain. Caesar and his wife are jackasses who have fully taken over Ashur's house, redecorating everything and even claiming Ashur's bedroom, all while reminding him that he's no better than the dirt beneath their feet. When Ashur tries to set a boundary after Caesar makes a move on his girl Hilera, Caesar responds by beating him to a pulp. Ashur's second life is starting to look like one long humiliation ritual. Ashur has to attend his own prestigious party with a black eye, lying to his guests that he fell, all while Caesar introduces the place as the House of Caesar. The only person with a shred of decency is Gabinius's daughter Viridia, who actually finds Ashur's female champion fascinating, while everyone else is booing the so-called abomination. Gabinius even tries to back out of the Primus arrangement altogether, but Ashur manages to smooth things over, convincing him they can still work together to help ease tensions between Pompey and Crassus. As the party rages on, Opiter corners Dr. Ray, who has been avoiding him. Ashur had already made it clear that there was no longer any need to entice Opiter now that they were officially in the games, so being seen together is risky. Things turn intimate anyway, and they're spotted by Proculus, which is almost guaranteed to cause problems later. Finally, the long-awaited games arrive. Viridia, who hasn't attended the games in years, appears alongside Ashur, immediately sparking Hilara's jealousy. Viridia also tells him to ignore Cassutia, who is still insulting him despite the fact that he saved her life. He should have let her die for real. The games open with Calidus and his son Tarchon taking the first stage. Tarchon is too impulsive and cocky, rushing his opponent to draw first blood, only to have his own blood drawn instead. Still, his youth and speed eventually balance out his father's veteran skill, and they win the match, putting the House of Ashur back on top. Then it's Achillea's turn. She and Calidus were intimate the night before, so he's openly rooting for her from the sidelines. Before the fight begins, Caesar continues planting seeds of distrust in Gabinius by revealing that Pompey is meeting with him outside Rome, while still refusing to visit Gabinius himself. When Achillea enters the arena, the crowd erupts in boos. To everyone's surprise, she isn't facing the Ferox brothers at all. Gabinius has switched her opponent to a massive man named Ammonius, choosing to test the so-called champion. What had me rolling this entire episode is the leader of the Ferox brothers, who has been running his mouth since the eve of the games, while Achillea has been eating them up with their dwarfism. Since they're so short, they can't even see what's happening in the arena, leaving them completely frustrated. Achillea starts strong, rushing Ammonius and impressing everyone, including Viridia. But the momentum shifts when Ammonius slams her with his shield so brutally that even Ashur can't watch. As the crowd chants for Ammonius to kill her, Achillea draws strength from a traumatic memory involving a young girl and manages to bait the giant into a fatal mistake, impaling him on her blade. The arena goes from booing to chanting her name in a rare moment of pure arena magic, only for the celebration to be cut short when Achillea collapses from her injuries. Achillea is rushed home in a desperate state, unconscious and bleeding heavily. The medic's only solution is to amputate the hand that won't stop bleeding, but Ashur is not about to let his star investment become a one-handed wonder. In a fit of rage, he throws the medic off a cliff and orders Dr. Ray to fetch Opiter's personal medic instead. Even with Caesar out of the house, Ashur cannot catch a break because Caesar's wife Cornelia is still lurking around, and she is arguably more malicious than her husband. While Ashur tries to instruct his gladiators to organize a contest to crown a temporary champion, Cornelia interrupts with a demand for entertainment. She forces Tarchon and two other gladiators to strip for the amusement of herself, Cassutia and Viridia. Viridia finds the display disgusting, but she is powerless to stop it. Cornelia doesn't stop with the gladiators though. She decides to humiliate Ashur by forcing him to strip like a mere slave right in front of everyone. When Ashur tries to remind her that he is the lord of the villa, she quickly reminds him that her rank makes him less than the dirt on her sandals. He has to swallow his pride and strip, only for her to mock him by pointing out that his equipment doesn't exactly measure up to his gladiators. Ashur eventually flees in shame, but Viridia follows him out to offer some actual comfort. She tells him how much he has inspired her, because seeing Achillea's strength made her realize she isn't just mourning a husband, but a lack of purpose. I really thought they were going to kiss here, but no such luck. As is common with the couple, Cornelia isn't entertaining Cassutia for nothing. She uses the opportunity to pitch a marriage between Viridia and Quintus Thermus, one of Crassus's esteemed men. It is another blatant ploy to bind Gabinius to Crassus, which Cassutia, who is having the time of her life, happily agrees to. Dr. Ray arrives at Opiter's house to find him fleeing town. When Caesar paid him to lure Cassutia to the market, he didn't know they would get hurt, and knowing how shrewd Caesar is, it's only a matter of time before Opiter becomes a loose end, or Gabinius finds out his involvement. Either way, he's a dead man walking. Dr. Ray is stunned to hear all of this, especially that Ashur already knew. Dr. Ray returns to the villa with Opiter's Greek-speaking medic, but communication is a nightmare because nobody understands what the man is saying while they bicker about being kept in the dark. He then heads back to Opiter for a final goodbye, gifting him the necklace he bought when he first won his freedom. Opiter invites Dr. Ray to flee with him, but he refuses. Not because he doesn't want to, but because he knows Ashur is far too petty to let that happen without blood being spilled. He would literally kill Opiter just to teach him a lesson. Not to worry though. Opiter has a solution. He's willing to leave behind his entire house and men for Ashur, in exchange for Dr. Ray leaving with him. Ashur is livid that Dr. Ray betrayed him, but he also sees the massive financial gain he desperately needs, so he asks for time to think about it. Cornelia wants Ashur to visit Gabinius and push for the Viridia-Quintus marriage, but Ashur does the exact opposite because he isn't about to let anyone else have his girl. He and Gabinius have become somewhat acquainted, with Ashur freely admitting he doesn't trust Caesar as far as he can throw him. Who Ashur is actually loyal to is Crassus. Gabinius could already smell Cornelia's manipulation from afar and firmly shuts the marriage down. He urges Ashur to capitalize on the momentum Aquileia has given his house and seize whatever opportunities come his way. Ashur is on his way home when he runs into Proculus at the market. Now that everyone wants a piece of Aquileia, Proculus wants one too. After months of mockery, he proposes an alliance with Ashur, pair Aquileia with weaker opponents, guarantee her wins, and make enormous profits together. Ashur refuses, boasting that his house is about to rise far higher than Proculus can imagine, thanks to what Opater is leaving behind. My God, Ashur could not keep his mouth shut for 2 seconds. The gladiator contest at the house goes smoothly, with Celadus winning the championship, but Ashur awards the title to Tarchon instead, officially naming Celadus the new doctor. The choice confirms Ashur has accepted Opater's deal. Before the big departure, they offer an emotional prayer to the gods for Aquileia. Ashur admits he has never believed in the gods, because his family prayed every day during their suffering, and nothing ever changed. Surprisingly, the gods actually answer this time. In her unconscious state, Aquileia faces her guilt. A flashback reveals that she and a young girl, possibly her daughter, were captured in their village. She fought her way free, but a spear she threw at a captor impaled both the man and her daughter, killing the girl. As the prayer ends, Aquileia finally wakes up. It's a moment of joy, but it turns sour instantly. As the gladiators line up to see Dr. Ray off, Opater is ambushed and killed by Proculus's men. Ashur's bragging just cost Dr. Ray the man he loved, and this hurt my feelings for real. Dr. Ray is absolutely shattered when he finds Opater's lifeless body. The Ferox brothers think they are being clever by leaving a Cilician symbol at the crime scene to shift the blame, but it's only a matter of time before Ashur sniffs out the truth. In the meantime, the house has to lock Dr. Ray in a cage because he is spiraling into a heartbreak-induced madness. Dr. Ray isn't the only one devastated by Opater's death. Casudia is also deeply heartbroken over her friend. She wants her husband to honor Opater with games, but Opater doesn't have enough status for that kind of recognition. Viridia manages to convince her father to at least preside over the auction of Opater's estate, since he had no family, as a way to honor his memory. If it isn't obvious yet, Ashur won't be getting Opater's estate. There's no proof any deal was ever made. He checks his finances to see if he can buy the estate outright, but he can't afford it. That's when he decides to confront Cornelia. Caesar has killed before using Cilicians as cover, so who's to say his wife didn't do the same? Cornelia tells him it wasn't Caesar or her. Then she asks if Ashur opened his big mouth to anyone else, which is when he remembers his ill-timed bragging to Proculus. While this is going on, Dr. Ray escapes his cage ready to attack Cornelia, as he also believes this was either her doing or Caesar's, but the gladiators manage to knock him unconscious and shackle him. Ashur is forced to tell him the truth. It was Proculus, not Caesar. If Dr. Ray hadn't been chained, he would have beaten Ashur half to death for putting the man he loved in danger in the first place. Ashur eventually calms him down, and together they wait for their moment of revenge. Ashur returns to Cornelia because he needs help raising money for the auction. He offers to nudge Gabinius back toward the marriage of Viridia and Quintus Thermus. Cornelia agrees to fund him, since the money Ashur is stressing over is chicken change to her. Ashur and Dr. Ray head to the auction with Cornelia's promise in hand, only for the leader of the Ferox brothers to have the audacity to wear Opater's necklace as a trophy. Dr. Ray nearly loses his mind and tries to attack him in public, but Ashur manages to restrain him. The bidding comes down to Ashur and Proculus. Ashur outbids Proculus with confidence, but Cornelia pulls the rug out from under him at the last second. After hearing from Casudia that Ashur was the one who sabotaged the marriage in the first place, Cornelia refuses to pay, leaving the house of Ashur publicly humiliated. They don't get the estate, but Opater's death still has to be avenged. Ashur turns to Casudia, revealing that Proculus is Opater's murderer. For a moment, it looks like Casudia is back to her slimy self, when she tells Proculus what Ashur said, and suggests an ambush to kill Ashur at a secluded meeting spot. However, her love for Opater outweighs her hatred for the Syrian. It turns out, the trap is actually for Proculus's men. Dr. Ray demands to handle the fight alone, and the result is gruesome as hell. He systematically takes out the Ferox brothers one by one, a scene so satisfying it'll have you giggling, while leaving only one survivor to carry a terrifying message back to Proculus. With his vengeance secured, Dr. Ray agrees to truly be Ashur's Dr. Ray once again. Aquileia is back on her feet, but she is far from 100%. Against Calidus's advice, she challenges Tarchon to get her championship title back and fails spectacularly, further damaging her healing hand. Spear was Achillea's weapon of choice in her past life, but she abandoned it after the trauma of accidentally killing her daughter. Calidus suggests she pick it up again because it only requires one functional hand, allowing her injury to heal. After Tarchon beats her, Achillea finally relents and picks up the spear, proving to be frighteningly good with it. She nearly bests Tarchon in the rematch, but she freezes when the flashback of her daughter's death hits her, allowing Tarchon to claim the win. As the reigning champion, Tarchon makes a request to Ashur. He wants a specific girl brought to him. She is a sex worker he cares for, and when he sees a bruise on her, he learns she was manhandled by a Roman. Tarchon is already planning a revenge mission of his own. Proculus arrives at Ashur's villa with the Aedile in tow, demanding that Opetor's medicus be handed over to treat his wounded men. Now that Proculus has legally stripped Opetor of his belongings, even the healer is his property, a move that further buries the house of Ashur under the shadow of Proculus's rising influence. The last surviving Pharaoh's brother is sent to retrieve him from Ashur's house, and he's scared out of his mind. He tries to plead with Dr. Ray, asking at least for the remains of his dead brothers for a proper gladiator burial, but Dr. Ray refuses, making it clear he wants him to suffer and know what it feels like to lose someone you love. Proculus, clearly on a revenge streak, corners Casutia in the streets and threatens to kill her once her husband dies for setting him up. Panic-stricken, Casutia rushes home to confess the danger she's brought upon them, only to find Gabinius dealing with a crisis of his own. Pompey has practically ghosted him, sending back a single-sentence reply that suggests Pompey is getting real friendly with Caesar. Once an alliance between Pompey and Crassus is formed through Caesar, what becomes of him? To save their skins, Casutia makes a gut-wrenching suggestion. They must marry their beloved daughter Viridia to Pompey. Beyond forcing Pompey to take Gabinius seriously, it would also shield both Casutia and Viridia if Gabinius dies. Gabinius is initially horrified at using his child as a political pawn, but the looming threat of his family ending up in ruins if he dies forces him to yield. The man loves his kid, so the best he can do is not command Viridia to do it. Instead, he places the choice in her hands, leaving her deeply heartbroken but resigned to her fate for the sake of her family's protection. Gabinius is to organize a game to distract the public from the recent carnage, and Achillea is made primus again. She's a little back to form, but Tarchon messes it up. Tarchon has been quite hostile for a while now, which the writers are really weird for, because he was one of the few people who were a little accepting of Achillea in the beginning. During training, Tarchon notices the glances between Achillea and Calidus, and realizes they are sleeping together. His reaction is extreme, to say the least. He disowns his father on the spot. He needs to take a chill pill. Later, while Calidus and Achillea are trying to make out, Calidus is troubled and reveals the root of Tarchon's bitterness. The boy was born into slavery, and his entire life has been a grueling climb toward becoming a champion to earn his freedom. To Tarchon, Achillea's rapid rise to primus feels like a slap in the face. To placate Calidus, Achillea agrees to speak to Tarchon to at least be civil. But the guy starts a fight that ends up ripping Achillea's stitches again. As expected, Ashur is fuming, because everyone is coming to the arena to see Achillea, who cannot fight now. Tarchon suggests taking her place with the audacity he bought from Timu, and Ashur nearly pushes him off the cliff for it. The emotional fallout spreads to Hilara. Earlier, Caesar's wife had drugged Ashur, leading him to confess what Hilara thought was love for her. In reality, he was imagining Viridia. Now Hilara tries to comfort him by calling his name like Ashur told her to when he was high. Ashur immediately breaks her heart, telling her he was drugged. In this house, she may stand highest, but outside his heart belongs to someone else. Hilara, crushed, seeks solace with Messia, apologizing for previously rejecting her now that she knows the sting of being unwanted. It's a safe bet that these two are brewing a revenge plot that Ashur won't see coming. In the tunnels of the arena, Ashur finds Viridia, who has accepted her fate to marry Pompey despite her feelings for him. Ashur tries to warn her that Pompey discards wives like tissues, but the reality of the Roman class system hits him hard. No senator would ever wed his daughter to a Syrian. The games start badly for Ashur, as the last surviving Pharaoh's brother kills his man in seconds. It looks like a bad day for the house, until Tarchon steps up and turns a murder into a masterpiece. While fighting, Tarchon signals his girlfriend to drop her abusive Roman master into the pit, and in the chaos, both fighters cut him down, making the death look like a terrible accident. The crowd turns uneasy. Romans aren't meant to die like that. But when Tarchon finishes off his opponent moments later, the narrative flips. Suddenly, he's the man who killed the fighter responsible for a Roman's death, and the arena erupts in praise. Tarchon accepts the glory, but he remains cold to his father, a decision that will haunt him forever. When Gabinius refuses to announce Achillea's absence, Ashur is forced to do it. weathering a storm of boos. However, the slimy Proculus seizes the moment to unveil his own copycat female gladiator. She is pitted against Celidus, and while the veteran gladiator initially dominates, the unthinkable happens. Celidus is killed. Like, the way I screamed at this scene. I cried my eyes out. I just kind of knew that somebody was going to die because of the way they made Tarchon so angry. I knew it was between Tarchon and his father, and I would have been okay if it was Tarchon that died, for real. I would have been okay. The death is so brutal it brings even Ashur to tears. Tarchon's rage instantly turns to soul-crushing regret as he realizes his last words to his father were spoken in hate. The atmosphere at the house of Ashur is heavy with grief, as the season finale kicks off with the gladiators returning the body of Celidus. Tarchon is devastated, especially since the last words he ever spoke to his father were filled with hate. Dr. Ray tries to offer some comfort, assuring him that despite their harsh final exchange, his father's love was a constant. In a display of somber respect, Dr. Ray insists that Tarchon alone should clean the body before the funeral pyre, even going so far as to bar Achillea from the room. He tells her that this is a time for the son alone, and he urges her to finally end her long-standing beef with Tarchon to honor Celidus's final wishes. Ashur decides to go straight to Caesar's wife to try and block the marriage Gabinius is arranging between Pompey and Viridia. His logic is that if Pompey and Gabinius are tied together by marriage, it will ruin Caesar's delicate maneuvers to bring Pompey and Crassus into an alliance. It's a bit of a head-scratcher, really, because it seems everyone is just fighting to be the one who gets credit for the peace. Caesar's wife is still fuming that Ashur sabotaged her previous plan to marry Viridia off to one of Crassus's men, but she eventually agrees to pass the message along to Caesar. Soon after, Pompey arrives in town alongside Caesar. After ignoring Gabinius for what feels like forever, the offer of a marriage alliance was finally enough to get him to show up. During their initial talks, Pompey asks about Viridia's intellect, and for a second, Gabinius thinks he actually cares. He starts gushing about how his daughter loves history and reading, but Pompey quickly shuts that down. He isn't interested in her mind at all. He only cares about her duty. He wants to know if she will be obedient, non-rebellious, and essentially a perfect, quiet wife. This absolutely breaks Gabinius's spirit. He realizes that this man has zero regard for the daughter he loves so much. All he can do is ask Pompey to at least treat her with respect and take care of her, a deal Pompey accepts before officially agreeing to the marriage. Caesar's return is anything but peaceful. He immediately grabs Ashur by the throat, furious that he left for a few days, and this is what Ashur allowed to happen. Caesar's horrible solution to the Pompey-Viridia marriage is that Gabinius must die, and Ashur must be the one to do it. Even though Caesar is dangling a prestigious house name and a private arena in front of him, which is most likely a lie, Ashur finds himself unable to go through with it. He knows how deeply Viridia loves her father, and he can't bring himself to be the one who destroys her world. Instead, fate intervenes when Pompey arrives at Ashur's house looking for entertainment. He demands a fight and chooses an opponent for Achillea. She requests Tarchon instead, wanting to finally prove she earned her championship title. The fight is brutal and aggressive, with Tarchon drawing first blood, but Achillea ultimately overpowers him. In a classic Roman move, Pompey signals for the kill, but Achillea refuses. By sparing Tarchon, she forces him to respect her as the true champion, and puts an end to their long-standing feud. Seeing how fascinated Pompey is with Achillea, Ashur hatches a desperate plan. He doesn't want to kill Gabinius, he just wants to ruin the marriage. He has the other slave lady, whom I have forgotten her name, steal a hallucinogenic drug from Caesar's wife, the same one that once made Ashur hallucinate Viridia. Achillea slips it into Pompey's drink, and Ashur lures Gabinius to the house with a fake message. Gabinius, who was just sharing a tender moment with Viridia over a game of chess since she would soon be leaving, arrives to find a drugged Pompey in a compromising position with Achillea. He is absolutely livid. He had begged Pompey to respect his daughter, yet here he is, choosing a gladiator over a senator's daughter on the very night they were to discuss the marriage. Gabinius declares the union dead and vows to align with Crassus, but the drugged Pompey snaps and slashes Gabinius in a fit of rage. This is where it gets truly gut-wrenching. Gabinius survived the initial strike, but Ashur is trapped. Caesar's wife openly applauds Ashur for ending the marriage without getting blood on his hands. Gabinius hears the truth and vows to tell Viridia everything. With no medicus on hand to save him and the truth threatening to ruin him, Ashur is forced to finish the job himself. What makes it hurt even more is that right before Gabinius entered that room, he treated Ashur with more respect than anyone ever had. He called him by his name instead of the Syrian, and praised him for choosing the state over his heart. Ashur actually tried to stop him from going in, but Gabinius was too stubborn. The season ends on a haunting note. Viridia is still sitting at the chess table, waiting for a father who is never coming home. Is this the end of Ashur and Viridia's love story? And the fact that Caesar and his wife know the truth means they will always hold it over Ashur. Caesar helps Pompey escape the city to avoid a Senate scandal, leaving Ashur to deal with the wreckage of his heart. We also finally get the truth about Achillea's past. The girl in her flashbacks wasn't her daughter, but a royal she was sworn to protect. Achillea accidentally killed her with an arrow, and instead of being executed, her father sold her to the Romans, which is how she became a slave.